Hey Brickmaniacs, welcome back to another Friday Sit Rep. Let's talk discounts to kick things off, because that's everybody's favorite, right? The first of the Elite 2022 exclusive discounts has arrived on brickmania.com as well as in our retail locations. That is buy 3, get 1 free on minifigures or perfect caliber brick arms. Like I said, that is available online and in our retail stores as long as you are a Brickmania Elite member. If you are not yet a Brickmania Elite member, you'll want to sign up by 1 p.m. today, our time, in order to be eligible for that sale. In addition, you'll notice that starting on Fridays, we are going to be sending out retail exclusive discount offers as well via our retail emails that you can sign up for in store. So you'll hopefully notice that coming through to your inbox here a little bit later today. Basically, those are going to be starting to launch every Friday, and the first one's pretty dang good. 20% off any one Brickmania kit, $100 or over, once again exclusive to our retail locations. So you'll be able to see new offers coming out just about every Friday. Those offers will be valid from the Friday they are sent out through that following Thursday at store close. So they last about a week each, and then we'll have new ones coming out every Friday. So make sure to stay tuned for those, because if you live next to a Brickmania retail location, these are for you. You're going to want to definitely dive into those. So discounts, fun way to start talking about stuff here on the Sit Rep, but obviously we got a whole bunch of models and whatnot to take a closer look at, so let's dive on in. All right, so we're kicking things off with our Spotlight pre-order. We got a brand new Harrier designed by Brendan. We've also got a little extra thing that we launched on Wednesday. So what do you want to start with, Brendan? Do you want to start with the Harrier or the drone?
Well, I'd say we can start with the drone because that's a bit more recent, technically.
Fair enough. Let's dive on into that then.
So this is the Bayraktar TB2 UCAV, unmanned aerial assault drone kind of thing. This it's originally a Turkish design, but if you've been watching the news and possibly a very catchy folk song that's popped up on YouTube recently, you know that this thing has been absolutely wreaking havoc on Russian armor for the last few weeks. It's an amazing little thing. In comparison to, say, like a Predator or like a Reaper drone. The Reaper drones are they're the size of an A-10. This thing is like smaller than a Cessna.
Yeah, right.
It's tiny, and yet it's been absolutely just destroying Russian armor. So it's very impressive. It's also been probably my quickest build. That might show in some places, but it was fun to kind of spend 3 days just trying to get this thing together. So really unique in getting that cant together, and this really strange twin boom where the tails connect in the middle, as opposed to creating kind of a V shape that you normally see on these things. They go for the twin boom and bring them together. And you got a full armament underneath. So you got these 4, I believe we started calling them mammal missiles, because it is MAML.
Yep.
Which I believe is like a multi-lock munition. Got our little sensor ball that'll be printed. Lovely, a little kind of iffy looking landing gear. It's light enough that they work. So it
just kind of wants to tip back a little bit. Especially on that surface that you've got it on right now too.
Normally, it doesn't look like it right now, but most surfaces that you put this on, at least most of the surfaces I've put this thing on, it wants to sit like that.
Okay. So feel assured, Brickmaniacs.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's a fun little thing. You've got a spinning low propeller that's a little hard to get at sometimes just because it's two-bladed, but it spins. We're going to get some more printing on the sides of these intakes here with the Ukrainian roundel, as well as one right here.
The little something on the, I was going to say on the tail too.
Yep, and we've got the shield and trident of the Ukrainian Air Force on both sides here. Like I said, the ball's being printed, and a little intake sitting right on the top here. So still some fun printing going into this fun little drone. Like I said, it's a 3-day project, which is impressive for me.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
Argue.
No, it's an epic turnaround, no doubt.
Dan has said, well, you get 2 days on every project now, so that's not terrifying. But yeah, so this little thing is an amazing little craft, and a new kind of realm for me and for us.
And quickly becoming an important part of history.
Exactly. We're actually making history here. So, or at least being a part of history being made, which is weird for me as someone who doesn't remember anything of Iraq or,
Sure.
or Afghanistan.
Yeah, kind of a new place to be standing. So, and then once again, if you're not 100% sure what Brendan's talking about, this is in relation to Brickmania's Project Ukraine. Check out our donations tab on the website. Proceeds from those endeavors are going to the International Red Cross. There's also a spot on brickmania.com where you can find alternative ways to donate if you want to get involved as well. Remember, it's not all about just grabbing some cool builds. It is about going out there and making sure that cash gets to the people who need it the most. Brennan, thanks for talking through this drone with us, but we also got another big bad boy to take a look at. This one kicking off our Falklands 82-month pre-orders. This is the British Sea Harrier, which we have seen a Harrier from Brickmania before, but we have not seen one like this.
That's true. So I remember when I first saw a Harrier from Brickmania, it was the one that Yitzi made long ago. And it was cool. It was the Marines version, which you may note has some very distinct differences. Nose is a little different, and the tip wheels that you can see here go on this version, they go all the way out to the wingtip. So they actually sit out here as opposed to on the Marines, I believe they sit between pylons 3 and 4.
Sure.
And I assume that's for some kind of stability purposes, possibly for the different armament that they were carrying. But this thing was a lot of fun to build. Bit of a headache, but everything kind of is when you've got these strange shapes and angles going on. It's a very tubular airplane.
Well, and then the downward slope of the wings and the way that integrates with the fuselage is crazy.
I'm really happy with how you've actually got 4 points of contact. So I don't know how well you can see from there, but when it sits on the ground, all 4 sets of wheels, the front, the back, and the fuselage, and both sets of tip wheels actually will all touch the ground.
Beautiful.
So you're not being held off the ground by your tip wheels necessarily. Though we did notice that the rear wheels, after some use of kind of retracting and extending over and over, they get a little weak. So we've included a piece in there where if you intend to display this for long periods of time, you can put a brick in there that will stop it from retracting at all.
Oh, sure.
And so that can just leave it sitting there. But you can always, it's pretty easy to pull out and pop off. So
Very
it's
smart.
going to be right in there. The rest of these are pretty solid. We got a full loadout here. So you're rocking twin gun pods, which will be printed. We've got, it's some minor printing, but I feel like it gives it some personality right on the tips there. You've got 2 sets of drop tanks, 2 sets of sidewinders, which are looking as sidewindery as ever. As you said before, we've got the lovely anhedral on these wings, which I probably overthought a little too hard, but I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, you captured it excellently. I think so as well.
Yeah, and you've got 4 tip jets that are a little harder to see with the drop tanks in the way. But if you can see here, we've got tip jets that will fully pivot downwards and then back into the forward position. Originally, we were thinking of getting them all to move together, but there's so much going on inside this plane, you don't really have a lot of space for that.
And you'll notice how important those are, because if you look at the rear of this airplane, you might be like, wait, where's the engine?
Exactly. The whole thing is, the engine is in here. I mean, it's just one big engine. You got your 2 intakes here. And the whole thing feeds to 4 nozzles as opposed to a single out or even 2 outboard motors. Outboard? This isn't a boat.
We're mixing them.
Yeah, you get the point though.
There's no 2 circle thingies on the back that make it go zoom.
Exactly. There's no. So, yeah, the difference in this aircraft that you'll notice, it's a lot slower than most planes, and that's because it is multi-purpose in that it flies forward, and then if you're coming into land, you can tilt all of your jets down and bring it into a vertical landing, which is great for, and you can also utilize those in takeoff. So as you take off, you can tip them down a little bit to get some extra upward thrust when you don't have all of the lift that you need from using the speed in your wings. And this is great for shorter carriers like the British have that don't use catapult systems. And so you've got this really strange, kind of cutting edge, turn of the century aircraft that they've made here and that I have tried to replicate. As for other printing on here, you'll get the roundels on the wings here. So you'll get 1 on either wing. You'll get roundels here on the sides of the intakes on either side. Some printing on the sides of the cockpit for ejection levers and whatnot. Got this lovely sticker by Slam that I've been really pleased with. Don't know how well you can see that.
You guys have been kind of tag teaming, figuring out how to make these canopy stickers a little less of a burden on the,
exactly.
on the builders.
We've been trying our best. You will get 2 of them, so you've got one try, and if that doesn't work, it's okay. Grab a little Goo Gone, try it again, and just take it slow. As someone with shaky hands, I can definitely attest that you want to just be careful with it. And a lot of printing, while it's pretty meager, you also notice the Royal Navy sticker we're putting on the back here, because that would be a nightmare to print. As well as the exterior printing, you're going to get a lot going on the inside as well. So we've got a lovely little headrest here, which actually doubles as a way to get your front gear out. I'll show you that in a minute. You're going to get a lovely gun sight. I don't know how you can see, but there are 2 cheese slopes in there. And those are going to have cockpit controls, so your throttles, all your levers and buttons, as well as this big 1x3 brick in there that gets all kinds of details on there. So you've just got a huge space for putting stuff. So going to be lovely. Got a brand new helmet coming with this as well. It's the British Aircrew Mark 4A. It's what they were using way back when, and it's pretty much what they're still using now. Really interesting, great work from Amanda and Austin on that.
Yeah, have you been able to see that figure that Landon designed for this thing yet?
Yeah, it's super slick.
It's got a little Brennan look going on to it a little bit.
A little bit. Back to that headrest though. So you may notice we've got a little axle in here going on right now. And that is because when you push this gear up into here, it fits in there pretty snug. And that's a little difficult to get back out. I suppose if you have longer fingernails, you could probably grab the tire and pull it out. But if you don't, you notice that this little thing has popped up a little bit. And if you push it down and hold it there, you have enough space to just grab onto that tire and pull it out.
Look how slick that is.
And it doesn't really interrupt with anything. It's not going to fall out while you maneuver around. So you can still like zoom, fly this thing around as much as you want, and it's not going to fall out. And if all else fails, I mean, there are so many things you could just push down in there if you wanted to change it to a display or something. You can put a bar down in there, push a pencil lead down there. I don't know, something. You'll figure it out.
Alternative building techniques.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of detail packed into this little thing, and I'm just very happy with how it turned out, and I'm really hoping you guys enjoy it, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you battled with this one for quite a while, and the results definitely show it. This is a phenomenal build. I love how sturdy it is. All the angles captured the way they should, and what a better way than to kick off our 82 Falklands War Month theme when it comes to pre-orders there. So this is available right now on brickmania.com. Brendan, thanks for checking in. All right, continuing with our check-ins, we got a little space race action this week, and this one is not even a pre-order. This is just a straight-up new release. This is the Vostok 6, designed by Amanda and Austin. Guys, you guys have been taking on the space race genre for quite a while now, and you're continuing to do that again this year. Tell us a little bit more about this model.
So this is the Vostok 6. It is the last of the Soviet Union's Vostok space program. Basically, their analog to Project Mercury in the United States. Vostok was the very first program to put somebody into orbit, and the R-7 Vostok launch vehicle here was the very first launch vehicle to reach orbit, period. So, just going into a bit of history behind this program, it really all stemmed out of World War II with Wernher von Braun's V-2 missile. After the war, you know, the Americans and the Soviets rushed in to sort of pilfer as much as they possibly could. And while the Americans got von Braun, the Soviets got his engines. The A4 engine is what powered the V-2 missile. They reverse engineered it, and they made basically an exact clone of it, and they just kept on testing, tweaking little things here and there, trying to figure out what worked and what didn't, making more and more powerful engines every single time, with the end goal of producing a missile that could hit the United States. Because this was right at the beginning of the Cold War. They just developed their nuclear capability, and they wanted to make sure that they had that ability. And
that's not as wholesome as space exploration, but okay.
It is not. It is not. However, the chief designer of Soviet rockets, Sergei Korolev, he did have slightly more wholesome intentions. He really wanted, like von Braun wanted, he wanted to do crewed space exploration. He wanted to reach the planets. He had the big, lofty, sort of visionary goals, and he wanted to be able to put a person in space. But the Soviet government did not care at all about putting a person in space, apart from maybe the little bits of national pride it could get them. So to get the funding that he wanted, just like von Braun, he had to sell it as a missile and as military objectives. So So this rocket here started as what was called the R-7. It was the world's first intercontinental ballistic missile, the very first rocket that was capable of hitting another continent. It was designed by Korolev, and it could launch a 3,000-pound nuclear warhead at anywhere in the United States. And that was honestly terrifying when it was first built. But as it turns out, and whether this was by design by Korolev or not, it was not really at all practical for that. The rocket was large. It needed super chilled propellants that had to be loaded right before launch, so it couldn't be sitting waiting. It had a really huge launch pad that was very easily seen by spy planes. The U.S. knew about it almost right away, and it basically was retired almost right away and replaced with other more covert missiles. But then, Korolev was like, hey, we have this cool rocket that can get things up into space. What if we use this for more fun stuff, right? And he really wanted to put a person in space, and the Soviet government still wasn't in on that. So he said, okay, I'll build you a spy satellite that can take photos of the US, and it's just going to happen to take the shape of a big spherical pressurized capsule full of cameras. Hey, what do you know? We can fit a person in here. Why don't we just do that just to see if we can?
Oh, that is smart.
They launched Yuri Gagarin into space, and then they continued testing that, and they found that it did actually sort of help bolster Soviet pride. It was beating the Americans, showing off Soviet technology, and so they kept going with it. And the very last of this Vostok program here was Vostok 6, and that's the configuration that we see here. And that launched Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space. Also, not many people know this, the first civilian in space. She had absolutely no military or government background. She grew up as a humble factory worker and had a knack for skydiving just as a hobby. And so she got really into skydiving, and what's funny is she kept this completely hidden from her parents. She didn't want the shame of being a skydiver, I guess. She wanted to be a noble factory worker to their eyes. But she was doing competitive skydiving, and that caught the eye of the Soviet space program that was looking for their first female cosmonaut, because there were rumors that America was looking to send a woman into space, and the Soviet government didn't want the shame of having been beaten to the first woman in space. They wanted
the space race,
right? Right, and as it turns out, the first American female astronaut wouldn't go to space until about 20 years after Valentina Tereshkova here did. So they beat us by a long shot there, but they had about 400 applicants for this first female cosmonaut, and she ended up being selected in large part due to her skydiving abilities. And the reason for that is because the Soviet Union had not developed a good way to soft land their capsule from space. The Americans had it easy. They just landed in the ocean because they were launching from the coast. But the Soviets, they landed just in fields in either Kazakhstan or Siberia or wherever. And it was just a hard landing on ground. And so what you see on the side of the capsule here printed, there's actually an escape hatch. And as the capsule's coming down, the hatch would blow and it would just launch the cosmonaut out, and they would parachute to a hopefully safe landing.
Hence the skydiving.
Yeah, exactly.
To a hopefully safe landing.
Yeah. So that's that little design quirk of this capsule is what made them end up picking a skydiver as the first female cosmonaut.
That is absolutely incredible. What a cool piece of history behind this kit, and obviously sits very, very well into Women's History Month. So let's dive a little bit into the build itself. You guys have the unique situation of rarely working within that 1/35th scale, because if you did, oh my goodness. So let's talk a little bit more about how you guys kind of started where you wanted to work with this kit. How do you build this from the ground up?
It was a lot of going back and forth. It actually came together a lot faster than either of us were expecting.
Yeah.
We were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. And then, not horrible, difficult. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, or we could just do that. And so actually the build itself came together quite quickly.
Yeah, we started working on this several months before it was due because we thought it was going to be such a challenge getting all these angles in it.
Probably should have started on a different one that's coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to see some 1/35th scale and the space stuff, just,
That's true.
Stay tuned.
Yep, stay tuned.
boosters all able to come off so they can do their crazy flipping thing as you're playing with it.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with this launch vehicle, it has the 4 boosters on the side that stay up with it for the first roughly 2 minutes of launch, and then while that's not possible to demonstrate in the Lego model, in real life they all separate at the exact same time. The nose cone usually doesn't fall off, but it's
Cut.
they all separate at roughly the same time in a really pretty looking maneuver called the Korolev Cross, named after its designer. And then after all 4 boosters have separated, what's called the core stage here is just the center skinny part will continue on into space.
I'm going to call out to Will for making us white model pods.
Yes. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, if you want white monopods, just buy this kit. You'll have a lot of them.
That's pretty incredible how that integrates like that. I mean, obviously, like you said, not possible to necessarily blow all 4 of those at once unless you got some extra hands hidden somewhere. But the way that you can still capture that play function for each one of them, that's really neat.
And
Yeah.
another call out to our incredible UV team for
Yes.
UV printing each of the helicopter blades for us. There's 16 of those per kit. We owe them a lot.
But it looks nice and clean. That was the look.
Yep,
It does, yeah.
they did great.
Now, what's interesting to point out here with the color scheme of this rocket, so in real life, the entire rocket is painted sort of a greenish gray. Lego Dark Blay is about the best approximation of that we could find. But the reason for the white and gray color scheme that you see in photos and models and all that is actually due to ice buildup. So everywhere that you see white on the rocket is where it would have liquid oxygen stored in the fuel tanks. And it was so cold that the skin of the rocket would become freezing, and any humidity in the air would just freeze onto it and build up this big, thick layer of ice all around the rocket.
Which is also why there is a sticker on here that is optional, because technically you would not be able to see the name.
Oh, sure. I
Yep.
was wondering what that was. I was like, what, did they have more Vostok 6 or whatever? Okay, fair enough.
Nope, that was, it was printed on the side and on the greenish gray, but it would have been covered up by ice. You would not be able to see the Vostok there.
That's really cool. That's the most unique optional sticker I think we've seen here on Brick Media TV.
The other kind of little fun thing
Oh, yes,
is,
yeah.
so this little capsule, it actually houses a little surprise. It's like a little Easter egg.
Oh, look at that.
So we got a little tiny Valentina.
So now you know the scale that these guys
Yeah.
are actually designing with, because if you see the 2 of those next to each other, then you start to understand what a 1/35th scale would actually look like.
And another thing is this does fit inside of
Yeah. If
its
you separate
stage.
the upper stage here, you can actually pull apart the fairing and
Fit that right in there.
yep.
playability, folks.
Yeah, well, you guys have definitely continued that on from the Gemini capsule, because that was one where it was kind of like, well, how much playability can you really get into these crazy angles? You guys found a way to do it. You're setting expectations for yourselves. I hope you know what you're doing.
Yes, we totally know what we're doing.
Well, we've got some cool playable stuff coming down the pipeline. So
Very, very
Yeah,
cool.
stay tuned, definitely.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to go over particularly on this one?
Just real quick, Landon did a nice upgrade to the minifig. I think it turned out really great. The hoses all read. Shadows, yeah, very nice job.
A very nice little display piece to go with it too. One for work, one for at home, however you want to do it.
And it might integrate with
options.
another said company's Lego Space Women.
Oh, right.
thing.
Yes, indeed. If you want to continue your lineup, or add some legitimacy to your lineup, maybe.
I don't know which particular thing I'm talking about, but it might do that.
Very, very cool. Well, there you have it. The Vostok 6 available right now on brickmedia.com. No pre-order here, so it is ready to ship and head out the door. Guys, thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, moving on to our standalone minifig. We got Edith Cavell, who's a World War I nurse, well known for helping out both sides of the conflict. And well, unfortunately, that did not work out super well for her, but an important part of women's history and an important addition to this lineup. Landon here in studio to tell us a little bit more about this figure.
Yeah, so we got a nice example of a World War I nurse sort of uniform here. I kind of like the simplicity of this. I mean, obviously we're used to seeing more of combat gear associated with military history, but this is a very important part of the military is taking care of the injured.
Yes.
It's obviously not a combat loadout. This is a simple sort of nurse loadout here. Loadout. Yeah, it's like, I don't even know how the language to talk about this, right? But we have a simple
flowing fabrics.
Apron, and you have what was interesting. Didn't have like surgical gloves back then, but they did have kind of these cuffs that they could be sanitized after surgeries or after like dealing with patients. Same thing with that apron. I'm assuming they would just put it into a big boiling pot of some sort. I don't know exactly the method that they would use to sanitize stuff. But you got to have something protecting your standard. Underneath of that is just kind of a blue gown of some sort. Simple uniform, but that's what they needed. This kind of ties back almost to previous Dr. Mary E. Walker, right? So she pioneered the thought of having a practical uniform for women to be wearing.
Something functional.
Yeah, something functional. And if this is in that lineage of this is a functional uniform for the time. Awesome 3D printed brand new hair sculpt there, just like totally perfectly captures that era.
It amazingly looks very, very Lego.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like very tough to tell that is a 3D printed, because just the textures that they've got going on there. I mean, an excellent job to Emmett Arkell, I assume, who modeled that.
Yep, Emmett Arkell, and then as well as that nurse's cap on top. I mean, combined with our newer 3D printed technologies, we're getting incredibly close to this like ABS Lego-like quality out of 3D printing.
Yeah.
There's always going to be improvements that can be made to the 3D printing realm, but I never would have thought that we could get to this level of detail a few years ago, and I'm assuming that I'm going to be
saying that again
in a few years
cool.
of 3D printing. So it's cool to see here that we're getting incredibly close to Lego quality parts at a crazy pace. So every year it seems like it's getting better.
Yeah, well, and anybody who's been a brick maniac for more than a couple of years too has been able to follow that progress, because it was brand new literally 2 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess pick one of these up, and great addition to. I mean, what would you even build this kind of? A field hospital?
Yeah,
something like that. Field hospital.
I think. First and foremost, it's just a good figure to have in a collection, because it's an important part of history, and obviously you need it to complete your women's history lineup. But it definitely would be interested to see some of these integrated even into like micro mocks.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean? Yeah, good call.
For almost the entire lineup, you could put them in some sort of background that would just really, really nicely showcase the important contributions that they've had.
Yeah, and just going back to the art, in terms of the style here, it's a bit of. It's a simple kind of arrangement here. I'm playing around with how detailed should we be going, how cartoon-like, how comic book-like.
Cool.
Classic Lego is always an influence, but then it's always thinking where would Lego want to go next, or where would we want to go next in our own art style. So this is a continual evolution. It's nothing crazy over the top, but maybe a little bit of a step forward, hopefully, than what Lego would maybe take or what we would have taken in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of walking that very fine line between something that is still a caricature of the real life thing, and obviously brings a little bit more photorealism than what has previously been done. So very, very cool addition. Now available on brickmania.com. Landon, thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
All right, so that'll just about do it for a Friday sit rep. Remember, though, we got grand openings just around the corner, the 9th of April in Miramar, which is San Diego, California, for that location, and the 16th of April in Vallejo, California, which is our Mare Island location. Very excited to get both of those stores up and off the ground officially, even though they are both technically already open. Going to have some exclusive minifigures, bricks, t-shirts, guests, all that kind of fun stuff at both of those locations on those days. So make sure to book your flights or make the drive or whatever you got to do, but don't miss out on those, because they are going to be be epic. In addition to that, if you guys have been following the Project Ukraine initiative that we've got going here at Brickmania and really across the AFOL community, once again, just so awesome to see the response from everyone who's involved in that. We have officially cracked the $8,000 mark as of the 8th of March, with more on the way. We are going to continue to make those donations, and we'll keep posting those updates as to exactly how much has gotten to where it needs to go. So make sure to stay tuned for more info there. Otherwise, that will do it for a Friday Sit Rep. Thank you very much for watching.